Well, good morning, and for those who are fortunate enough to be in a later time zone, good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the launch of the XIFIN FrontRunner Healthcare Partnership. I see we've had a good number of folks join us. I see numbers continue to trickle in, so I'm guessing that people will continue to join. But for the sake of time and make sure that we can cover everything that we intend to cover today, we will go ahead and proceed. My name is Keith Truax. I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at FrontRunner Healthcare, and I will be your moderator for this session. The goal of this webinar is to introduce the new integrated revenue cycle tools and demonstrate the value that they bring to XIFIN clients. We do have a couple presenters today. Our speakers will be from XIFIN, will be Mike Coates, and then from FrontRunner Healthcare will be Dean Pollock. Both come to us with extensive backgrounds and experiences in this space. Mike is currently the Executive Vice President for XIFIN. He has held several senior management positions where he created and managed financial information systems for some of the largest clinical reference labs in the United States. While at LabCorp of America, Mike had overall technical responsibility for accounts receivable and billing systems, processing approximately 250,000 patients' requests per day. He also served as Vice President of Financial Systems for Unilab, which many of you are familiar with as a large California clinical laboratory. Previously, his background was in computer system design and software development, and Mike holds a BSBA in Operations Management from the University of Missouri. So we're very fortunate to have Mike with us today. Also presenting is Dean Pollock, who is currently the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing for FrontRunner Healthcare. Dean has also held several executive leadership positions with some of the largest healthcare organizations in the world, some of them you've probably heard of, such as WebMD, McKesson, and Experian Healthcare. Dean has spent the last 33 years in the healthcare IT space and is a graduate of the University of South Florida with a degree in business management, and he was one of the founders of FrontRunner Healthcare. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Mike Coates. As you can see, we have the, in a second here, you'll see the agenda come up, but as we've done the introductions, Mike is going to walk us through the reasons for the partnership and why we believe it's so compelling for healthcare organizations and laboratories across the United States. Then Dean will take us through the insurance discovery process and what some of the clients have been able to achieve so far with these integrated solutions. Once we finish that, we will wrap up with a Q&A session at the end. So there will be questions and answers. And if you note on the screen when you logged in, there is a question section. So when we get to that point, you can feel free to enter your questions there, and we will field as many as we possibly can. And for those where we are not able to, we will document those throughout the process, throughout the session, and we will provide follow-up. So with no further ado, Mike, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar today. We feel like the relationship between FrontRunner and XIFIN is an important one that everybody will benefit from greatly as we get into both showing you how the integration looks and how it works within the product. So to start with, the XIFIN product was built to allow integration with partners, knowing that technology changes all the time in the market, and we want to use that technology change to improve the billing process. Integration with different systems is one of the keys that makes a successful billing operation work. And through web services, in the RPM product, we can allow this to happen. XIFIN is always looking for partnerships that will enhance the billing workflow to increase automation, reduce labor, and ultimately increase collections. We have over 20 different optimizations that allow you to improve collection rates and also leverage the integrated partnerships we've developed over time. Some of these include document printing, faxing, IVR services, and our client and patient portals. The newest optimizations that we have been looking at and working on are the ability to upload documents and also the FrontRunner insurance discovery product that we're going to talk about here today. As we started talking to FrontRunner, the thing that got us excited was the technology They are a cloud-based system, so they could easily use our web service integration, which is the key to the success, which you'll see here on the webinar today. FrontRunner is a cloud-based product and allowed easy integration to maximize the web services. We feel like this is a key factor to what we've done to date, and then potentially it's going to open the door in the future as both XIFIN and FrontRunner improve and increase their products as we go down this relationship. The challenge, as you know, is the data. The data coming in the form of either paper or electronic orders is questionable. Sometimes it can be really bad data, and in addition to that, it doesn't go through a lot of edits before it comes to us, especially on a paper requisition. There's no edits. It's just written down data. At least on the electronic orders, there's a little more capability for editing, but ultimately, when it hits billing, it hasn't gone through the same billing edits that we've got in the XIFIN system, and thus errors are created and causing problems within the billing department to get the claims paid. The data does come from multiple sources, so again, it can be very questionable, but ultimately, a lot of it's inaccurate or incomplete, and it causes big problems within the systems. Ultimately, what can happen is you can have increased costs to try to collect better data, or you can have lost revenue. So those are all the things that are really impact you on a daily basis. So the solution that we think that is on the table that is very compelling is the FrontRunner solution. It's their insurance discovery product that automates the obtaining of correct patient information and demographic data for self-pay accounts. And as I said, the solution goes through the web service integration for the two companies that allows us to do things that we've not been able to do with some of the other partnerships that we've done, but ultimately leads to clean claims going out the door for quick and easy payment, whether it be insurance or patient pay. So go ahead. Going forward, okay, so now we're on basically the partnership itself. So FrontRunner, although they are a little bit newer to the laboratory part of healthcare, they have a big presence in healthcare itself. They've got other customers in other segments of the market. Just as an example, in 2017, they've decreased collection calls by more than 1 million. They've identified $1.7 billion in potential recoverable revenue through their product, and they've reduced, again, the collection letters to the patients by approximately 1 million. So again, this all speaks to what they have as their solution to be able to find either corrected data for the patient or corrected insurance information for the patient, so that as you bill, you're billing to the correct insurance company and getting paid the first time, which is very, very critical. From the partnership perspective for XIFIN, we started working on this approximately May of this year. And again, because of the web services and them being a cloud-based company, we had the ability to quickly finish the integration, although we're continuing to move forward as we look at new opportunities. But so far to date, we have got 6 customers that have signed up for the integrated solution, and we've got another 14 that are actively working their way through the setup process. Again, because as your software platform, we do all the integration work with FrontRunner. So if you decide to use the product, which we hope everyone on the call will, the amount of work that you have to do to get it up and running really becomes a configuration steps and signing, the couple different documents. But ultimately, the integration, the heavy lifting of the integration work has been done in the background by us, and so it makes it very easy to turn on a new optimization or a new service. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dean to walk you through a number of different pieces of what he's going to talk about of how it works and what you're going to see in the demo.
Thank you, Mike. So I'll start with a brief introduction to the Patient Remedy suite of revenue cycle tools. These tools are designed to generate revenue, reduce costs, and improve operations at your organizations. The first module is Insurance Discovery. Insurance Discovery generates revenue, reduces operating expenses by delivering billable coverage for accounts that were presumed to be self-pay or uncompensated care. And we're going to show you during the presentation how we accomplish that. The second module is address verification. Address verification updates address changes, demographic data corrections for all your self-pay patients. So it cleans up the database, it maintains the database, and makes sure that you always have the most accurate information so that when you're sending a statement to a patient or trying to contact a patient, you have the most accurate information. When you take these two tools and you combine them with the XIFIN integration, we have the ability to load all this information into the XIFIN system electronically to maintain the data accuracy and eliminate the need for data entry staff. So we'll start by talking a little bit about FrontRunner. We're headquartered in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We were founded in 2010. We are privately held, and our primary clients are laboratories and health systems. Our key differentiators are our data quality, our laboratory experience, our seamless integration into XIFIN, and our pay-for-performance model. In other words, if you don't win and succeed, we don't win and succeed. And the real value that FrontRunner is bringing to this relationship, you'll see in our initial results from the pilot that we did with XIFIN. We were given 12,787 patients that had uncompensated care, that had been worked, had been called, had gone through the normal revenue cycle process. We took those 12,000 patients, we ran them through our database, and delivered back coverage on 4,232 patients. Those patient accessions generated charges of $3.59 million in reimbursable care. To put that into perspective, that was 42% of the dollars that were in the uncompensated care category were able to be billed to the payer and then ultimately reimbursed. So let's talk about insurance discovery, what it does, and how it works. With insurance discovery, we deliver insurance coverage for self-pay patients, rejected patients, terminated patients. We also correct any patient demographic errors that are in your database and update address changes on those patients that we deliver back information on. And it's all electronic through the interface. When we deliver this information back, we're giving you all of the data that you need to file that insurance claim. We are also giving you back client-specific benefits and coverage information so that you'll be able to determine whether or not this is a billable service at your facility. We also deliver back demographic verification and address corrections and update that information in your XIFIN system. All the data is loaded back into XIFIN in an electronic fashion without the need for human intervention. And this process can be done on the front end of your revenue cycle, on the back end of your revenue cycle, or any place in between, or both. So it can be flexibly configured to fit into your operations wherever you best see fit. And it requires no change in the current partners that you're doing business with right now. This acts as a safety net underneath all of your processes to catch anything that might slip through the cracks, to ensure that you're maximizing your revenue and maximizing your productivity of your staff. So to make it clear, we'll take a look at the current eligibility process, which is XIFIN's RPM electronic eligibility combined with manual data entry and manual effort to find missing information and correct missing information. So your standard eligibility process, accessions come into your organization that are insured and have valid insurance coverage, or what appears to be valid insurance coverage, and you also receive accessions that have unknown insurance or self-pay accessions that you don't have enough or the right information to be able to run an electronic eligibility check or a manual eligibility check. So in the current process, you take the insured accessions, in a 270 transaction and you send them to the payer. The payer electronically verifies whether the patient has confirmed coverage or not, and then that confirmation or rejection is sent back to your XIFIN system. On average, 90% of the patients that are sent electronically through XIFIN receive an acceptance from the payer and therefore can be billed and will be reimbursed on the back end of the process. 10% of the patients are rejected on average, and therefore additional work needs to be done by staff members to determine why it was rejected, correct the information, and then resubmit the electronic eligibility verification. But what about that unknown insurance or self-pay accessions that you don't have enough information on? That accounts for about 20% of the accessions that are received by most lab organizations. Now, keeping in mind, that's 30% of your patient accessions that need to be worked manually in some form. Now, that number can vary based on the type of lab and your access to the patient information. So in some cases, it can even be higher than 30%. So what has to happen at that point is phone calls, going to websites, calling providers that have sent the tests, and calling patients to gather that information. On average, the normal facility finds 10% of that coverage, bringing their total successful reimbursement rate up to 80% of the incoming accessions, and then leaving about 20% of self-pay and bad debt. So how can patient remedy insurance discovery help you improve that outcome, help you reduce your costs, increase revenues, improve operations? How we accomplish this is by accumulating various different national and local databases into what we call the patient demographic cloud. By the licensing of these various different databases that has the information that you're missing on your accessions that you're sending to the insurance company, we can enrich and update the data that you're providing to the payers and get a much higher hit rate. We also have historical coverage information in our database that can help identify coverage that we can then confirm with your payers and deliver back to you so that that accession can be billed and compensated. So in the enhanced eligibility process that we're talking about today, we're going to be replacing manual processes with automated electronic data recovery. So we're going to be delivering more information, but yet still doing it electronically. So the beginning of the process is the same. You're going to take your insured accessions and confirm them, but you still have that 20% of uninsured or unknown insurance that needs to be reviewed. So currently, it's a manual process, but what we're recommending is remove the manual process with an integrated electronic process. This process is going to replace the manual staff with the FrontRunner database and the XIFIN integration. By taking those 30% of patients, running them through the database, most clients are seeing a 90% success rate and a 10% bad debt rate. So not only do we deliver back more information, but we also update it back into the system without the need for the human intervention, leaving those 10% of patients that are truly bad debt and self-pay, and then being able to route those patients to the appropriate people within your organization for follow-up. Now I'm going to move on and talk about the XIFIN integration and the seamless integration that we have put back into the RPM system. We also call it exception management because we're going to be able to deliver data back in two forms to your XIFIN system. The first one is automated. All of the data that's coming back to you will be scored by FrontRunner as to its reliability. So we will check various different factors to make sure that we know that the data is accurate before we deliver it back. And that's called, a high acceptance rate. Those will give you the ability to automatically update those back into XIFIN, knowing that the data is accurate and that it's been electronically verified. An example might be a patient that came back with no coverage, but now we found that they have a commercial insurance. We would be able to deliver back that commercial insurance coverage right back into the XIFIN system, trigger the claim to go out the door, first run it through all the edits, and then trigger the claim to go out the door to the payer. We also have what are called reviewable accessions. And these are accessions that need to be looked at. They have a lower acceptance rate. And so we want someone within the organization to look at that. And we'll give you some examples of what that would look like. But the key thing here is any of the data that's going back into your XIFIN system, you get to decide as an organization your comfort level with updating that information and determine which ones go in automatically and which ones will be manually reviewed by a staff member. So all the accessions are sent to FRONTRUNNER's database where coverage is discovered and demographics are corrected. Then they're returned back in these two forms. Automated accessions are immediate. These are ones that have been verified. They can be auto-posted, no human intervention. The data goes in, it gets sent to XIFIN. All of your claim edits and filters are executed prior to the claim being processed. So you know that what goes out the door is accurate. The second are reviewable. These are ones that will be posted after approval. These are things such as we couldn't confirm whether the coverage that this patient has covers the services that you provided. So we'll provide you back with all the information from the payer in the form of a portal and let you decide whether or not you want it posted in or not. And these are what we call exceptions management. So once you review, it's a click of a button, it sends the data, goes through your edits, and then the claim is generated without human intervention. Now, all of these, both of these forms go back through and are auto-posted into XIFIN, regardless of whether it's automated or reviewable. Now here's an example. We're going to take you through an example now of the exceptions management and how you'll be able to update accessions that we want you to review or that you've chosen to review. As you see here, you'll have demographic data that is delivered for review prior to updating. You'll also have insurance data that we've identified and found that is not in your existing XIFIN system. So in this case, the patient has a primary of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia and a secondary of United Healthcare. We will display your data, showing you what you have in your system versus what we delivered back. And if you notice the radio button, will give you the ability to select what you want updated back into the XIFIN system. It will display what will be posted back into XIFIN, and when you hit save, the data is automatically updated into the XIFIN system. Not only demographics.
Hey, Dean, I'm
Yes?
sorry to interrupt. This is Jessica. We're stuck. I think the screens aren't advancing. We're still on the exception management screen.
Okay, well, we might have lost connection there. Let me see. Yes, I did. It jumped over to a different. All right, let me see if I can get that Tell me when it comes back on to the.
Great. Now we just see the welcome screen. We can pass presenter as well.
It says that we should be reconnected.
Ah, yes.
So tell me when
There
you
we
see
go.
Are we back to the XIFIN integration screen? Okay.
We sure are.
Sorry about that. So we'll pick up there. Thank you, Jessica. So the data that comes in, the demographic data will be displayed on the screen that is going to be delivered back for your review. We will also bring back the insurance data as you see at the top of the screen, primary and secondary. We'll bring back the data that you have in your XIFIN system and compare it to the data that we returned, and give you the ability through these radio buttons to decide what you want updated back into your XIFIN system. It will show you what's going to be posted back, and then by hitting the Save button, the system goes out through the web services and automatically updates the XIFIN application. So it's click and send. Very simple. Then when you go into XIFIN, your session detail screen will be updated with all the new information. It will also date and time stamp not only that this was updated at this date and time by FrontRunner, but also the person within your organization that approved this data to be loaded into the XIFIN system. And keep a complete audit trail on that. It will also bring back client-specific benefits. So you'll be able to see all the information that you need to make a determination on the coverage for that patient, and it'll load it into the contact details screen and contact notes. It will also bring back insurance that we have identified that this patient has valid insurance coverage. And we'll provide you with a FrontRunner patient client portal. And this portal allows you to go in and see things like, let me see all the coverage that was found. Let me see all the demographic changes. Let me see all the coverage changes. Let me see the terminated insurance and so on. So there's various different reports that will go out and bring back lists of those patients that can be exported to Excel, common deliberative files, and so on. So let's take a look at the results from that original file that we received of the patient accessions that were in the uncompensated care file. So we found we received 12,787 patients. Of that, we found insurance coverage on 4,234. So 33% of the patients that we were delivered that had already been worked through the normal process, we received and found 33% coverage. Of that, there were $3,591 that were able to be rebilled or billed to payers, which represented 42% of the money that was in the uncompensated care file. And that, again, was auto-posted back into the XIFIN system without human intervention. On the demographic side, we were able to take and find that we found new addresses on 49% of the patients that were in that uncompensated care self-pay file. And that represented patient statements of about $1,395,000, or 45% of the monies that were in the uncompensated care self-pay file. We also were able to improve the address on about 11% of the patients, which means we were able to add information to that address, such as apartment number or zip code, that made that deliverable to the patient. And then on 40% of the patients, we had the same basic information that you had on that particular patient. So they're just throwing it away at that point. We also deliver back on a monthly basis various different dashboards and reports that show you how many insurance discoveries we've delivered. What is our hit rate in terms of recoveries from those self-pay files? How much money is being generated? Are you able to close out those cases? And so on. So we'll be able to deliver back some very good statistical reporting, and we'll be able to track within the XIFIN system of what we sent you, what was actually reimbursed on those particular sessions. So that pretty much goes through the application and how it functions, and where do we go from here? What is the go-forward process? So anybody that is interested in taking a look at the application further and engaging with us, the next step would be to contact your XIFIN CSM to set up a time to have one of our representatives show you more detail about the application and talk more about the specifics. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Keith, and we're going to open it up now for questions. Keith?
Well, thank you, Dean and Mike. That was very informative. Very much appreciated. Outstanding. So thank you, everyone, for who is participating, and for those who have provided some questions via the WebEx capability. So we've got a few questions that we'll throw out, and then Mike and Dean, if do your best to answer these as they come in. First one is, how is this different from what I'm already doing with eligibility?
Okay, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, so the eligibility in the XIFIN system today really is the communication with the payer using the standard 270, 271 transaction, where we provide minimal information, and they say whether based on the information we provided, the patient is either eligible or ineligible or not found. Insurance discovery on the flip side is actually taking all the data associated with the accession, trying to find if there is an insurance coverage across the spectrum of insurances out there, as opposed to the one insurance company that we specifically ask about coverage for the patient. So the difference is that the eligibility in XIFIN will ask a specific payer if there's coverage. The insurance discovery will look across different databases and the technology that FrontRunner has employed to find an insurance company to ask if the patient is covered. And part of their service is, before they return the data to you, as far as the found insurance, they will also do an eligibility hit to try to validate that it is covered.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Next question. How is this service unique or different compared to other vendors?
I can take that one. Well, how it's unique to other vendors is your typical vendor is taking your information and bouncing that up against the payers. They're not really, they don't have a database that's going out and enriching or enhancing that information significantly to be able to then find coverage. In today's HIPAA environment, the payers have made it harder and harder to confirm this eligibility, and so therefore you almost need to be perfect when you're sending the information in. So what the service does is it cleans up the data, provides back what the payers need to reimburse on that, but it also is integrated back into the XIFIN system. So when we do find this coverage, it's not adding additional burden onto your staff to say, okay, now we've got to create a special process over here that we have to manually go in and key all this information. We're updating XIFIN, the claims are being run through your normal editing process, and then it's being billed out to the payers with little to no human intervention. That, coupled with our database that we're providing access to, that we spent about 4 or 5 years developing and building, are probably the key differentiators, and our pay-per-performance models as well. Keith.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dean. This probably seems like a question could be both of you, Mike and Dean. What has the client experience and feedback? How has that been so far?
This is Mike. There's been a number of different customers, as we indicated, that have already started the integration. And although we would have liked to have presented a few more numbers, the actual results of the integration and the process is still coming in as far as being able to measure it. But so far, we have seen in a couple of pilots that were done initially very good return of data. And as far as the collectible payments that are going to come in from the insurance company, as far as the insurance discovery and the address correction. So we've seen what we think is a very good hit rate on return data that's actually turned into dollars.
Thank you.
And I would add to that, Keith, that we've gotten some very good feedback from the clients in terms of the ease of use of the integration tools and the ease of putting and implementing this in, to their organizations compared to maybe some of the other projects that they've done.
Good. Thank you, Dean. All right, well, something that's probably near and dear to many people who are listening right now. How does the pricing model work?
Well, I can probably take that. There are several different pricing models depending on the type of lab, the volumes that you're sending, and whatnot. We have a flat rate fee, and we also have a pay for performance fee, which is a percentage of revenue. But we typically are going to sit down after you've had a chance to take a look at the application in more detail, and then we will tailor a model to your particular business environment and customize it to each individual lab specifically.
Very good. Thanks, Dean. Next question. How long does it take to implement the solution, and how much of our resources are required? But so operations and implementation is one of the areas I'm responsible for, so I thought maybe I'll take this one. And if Dean and Mike, do you want to add anything onto it, feel free. But normally for a XIFIN / FRONTRUNNER implementation, it takes 30 to 45 days. We've seen clients implement as low as in the low 30s, and we've seen clients go longer. It really depends on the level of engagement that the client has and how quickly they want to proceed. As Mike, I think, said earlier, the majority of the work really resides with XIFIN and FRONTRUNNER, and even the largest portion of the work has already been completed on your behalf. It's simply a matter of you taking advantage of capabilities that technically the underpinnings have been completed. So the resource utilization on the client side is fairly minimal. Typically, we look for a business sponsor or executive that can be the ultimate decision maker, and those who manage the staff to make sure that all of the users are trained and ready to go once at that 30 or to 45 day mark when we turn the switches on and things go live and there's business for the staff to work. I don't know if Mike and Dean, if you want to add anything onto that or not.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that. So I absolutely agree with what you said. What tends to happen is that there are a few steps that are going to have to happen right off the bat, which is some payer mapping, as far as making sure that as everyone understands, that the payer ID that's in the XIFIN system is unique to what the customer wants it to be. So there has to be a mapping exercise back to a standard set of payers, so that we know, what, when you say Aetna, it really represents, Aetna 1, 2, 3 in the customer system. So there's that mapping exercise has to happen. And then the other piece where the CSM gets involved is, what are the errors that you want to send to FRONTRUNNER? Because of the flexibility of the system, we can send different types of errors, unbillables or denials. So you have to kind of walk through which are the different pieces that you're trying to ask for better data from FRONTRUNNER, and that's an exercise that the customer will need to go through both with FRONTRUNNER and the CSM to make sure that everyone's in agreement, and then the configuration will happen, and then the data will start to flow. So it's not to say that it takes a long time, but it's pretty important steps that have to go through on the mapping exercise, and also if there's any custom workflow considerations that need to be taken into account, those also have to be dealt with as part of the project. And then, once that happens, as I said earlier, the integration itself with the web services has already happened in the background previously, and so it's just a matter of starting to see the transactions go through there, and then the comfort level becoming high enough at the customer site to feel like that the rules that are set to automatically update are going to do what's expected, and the rules that are set for manual review are in the state that they want those, ultimately knowing that at some point that those manual review rules can be converted into automated rules if you'd like. I think that's it for me.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Another question that's come across, kind of an extension, I think, of the pricing. So how do you determine what you're going to bill a client once they go live?
I guess I can take that one. And within the XIFIN system, we've set it up so that when we update in a session with the coverage, our system flags that, and then as payments come in, we identify those payments coming in, and that's how we would determine what gets billed on. So it's a collaboration between the two companies, along with the integration, that's going to give us the information that we need to bill the clients. Mike, would you add anything to that?
Not a lot. There's a couple of things that can happen. Again, there's a couple of different models, but ultimately, with the web service integration, FrontRunner can come look at the state of the accession at different points in time to determine what's happened and if it becomes a billable event for the customer. We're also in the process of creating a report that could also be used to show activity, in addition to reports that are already there that can show at the accession level activity for a particular day as to what messages were added to the accessions.
Another question hot off the presses. What is the main information the system is searching from? So where do we get our data?
I'll take that one. So again, there's a configuration that's going to happen on the reason code screen that says these are the errors that need to be sent to FrontRunner. Ultimately, we're sending FrontRunner enough information for them to start the process. Really, the key for them is the accession ID. Once they have the accession ID, they can use the web service to be able to pull back the complete set of information that already exists on the accession. And obviously, as they're doing the searching across multiple multiple databases, trying to find the appropriate payer, they're going to use every piece of data that's on the accession that's already there to help get to the best answer for what comes back as far as who the billable party is or who the billable insurance company is. So that's how we allowed them to get access to everything that's already in the system to maximize their results.
Very good, thanks, Mike. All right, looking through us, any other questions that we didn't cover? I think from a question and topic perspective, I think we've covered all the questions. So I guess we can take a pause there, and as we said early on, thank you very much for taking the time to join the meeting today. Hopefully you found it very useful and very helpful as you think about your business and how do you continue, just like any business, how do you continue to drive revenue and reduce costs and improve performance. And we think that the partnership here really creates a unique opportunity for all of you to take full advantage of really being able to secure all three of those aspects as you especially start thinking about moving from 2017 into 2018 and a fresh shot at improved financial performance. So in closing, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And Dean and Mike, if you each want to make some closing remarks, the floor is yours.
Yeah, mine will be very brief. I think that the key is that if you are interested, which hopefully with what you saw, that it's kind of it's an obvious optimization that you would want to turn on, please contact your CSM if you haven't already to start the conversation, and they can guide you through the process.
And I would close with just saying we're very excited about the opportunity to work with each and every one of you to see how these tools might be able to help you in meeting some of the challenges that you're going to have in the upcoming year ahead. So thank you for attending, and thank you for your time today.
And a special thank you to both of you, Dean and Mike. We really appreciate all the information that you shared with everybody today and your perspectives. So for that will be a wrap then. So everybody that joined, thank you very much. We appreciate it. As Mike said, if you've got questions, follow up with your CSM, and we look forward to working with each and every one of you. That will close our session, and have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful rest of the week.